Hello and welcome. I'm Andy Clark and this is World as One, a show that brings together some of the greatest political minds to share their ideas, discuss challenges, and present perspectives to some of the most pressing global issues. Today on the show we have a man who's received death threats for his views and is under a self-imposed exile from Pakistan. Baloch campaigner Noordin Mengal. Noordin Mengal may just be 30, but he has been campaigning for an independent Balochistan for over a decade. It's a family tradition. His grandfather was chief minister and later arrested along with other Balochistan leaders. His uncle was kidnapped and murdered for vocally supporting Baloch rights. His father served in the Senate for 6 years until then-President Pervez Musharraf suspended it. Noordin himself is wanted in Pakistan for his political activism and is a familiar face at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. He says he doesn't know if he'll see an independent Balochistan in his lifetime, but it's a cause he will spend the rest of his life fighting for. This seems to be a bit of a family tradition, campaigning for Balochistan. Can you give me a bit about your family background?
Well, my family, my grandfather started his struggle for Balochistan in the 1950s. At the time, Ayub Khan had imposed martial law and had formed the one unit. So the provinces basically lost their identity. And my paternal grandfather, Noordin Mengal, who was the first chief minister of Balochistan, struggled along with other nationalist groups, other political parties and nationalists from other parts of Pakistan, including the Pashtuns, to gain their identity once again. So that ultimately Ayub Khan had to dismantle the one unit and well, the provinces got their names back at least. And finally, after that, the elections took place, and the first time the elections took place in Balochistan were the 1970s. And my grandfather, as I mentioned, was elected as the first chief minister, and but his government didn't last too long because the military, along with Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was the prime minister, didn't trust them. After my grandfather's government was dismissed, after being 9 months in office, the provincial government of the NWFP also resigned in protest. And the leadership was imprisoned by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's government over false charges. This ultimately led to the National Awami Party being banned by Bhutto's government, and it resulted in a rebellion because the Baloch masses felt that their democratic process had been disrespected and that their chosen leaders were sidelined or removed without any just reasons. So following that again, after that Ziaul came into power and he removed Bhutto. My elders, my grandfather, my paternal grandfather and my maternal grandfather, both leaders of their tribes as well as nationalist leaders of Balochistan, were forced to seek self-exile in Britain, and my maternal family moved to Afghanistan. So after that, again in the 90s, democracy somewhat came back, but didn't last too long either. So again, my uncle was elected as a chief minister, but that government too was dismissed within a year and a half. Over the nuclear tests that were carried out, because they opposed it. They felt that it shouldn't have been carried out in Balochistan. Then again, Musharraf came into power, and then he started a military operation, and everyone just went their own ways.
Did I see it right that some of your family have been killed by Pakistani forces?
My uncle, being very young, he was well educated. He was living in Karachi at the time, and one evening he was out with his friend Ahmad Shah Kurd. My uncle's name was Asadullah Mengal, and they were out in Karachi, and at that point lights went out in the area, and a car started, well, no one saw it, but this is what people say had happened. A few people that heard gunshots and saw what happened. There was a car that was parked, and basically they were shot at, and we never found their bodies. We never heard from them. My uncle was never found till date. We don't know what happened. He went missing. He was one of the first people in Balochistan to go missing. A few years ago, Hamid Gul, Pakistan's ex-ISI chief, in an interview with the Pakistani news channel, surprisingly admitted to the fact that my uncle had been abducted by the military, and that he had been killed during interrogation somewhere near Kashmir. This was in 1976, but when it comes to enforced disappearances, they haven't stopped ever since.
Does that not worry you?
It does, but again, worrying doesn't get you anywhere, does it? They're going to target you in any case. I mean, there have been many cases where women and children have been targeted for no reason at all. They haven't been part of anything. So it doesn't surprise me if they would, even if you try to stay out of it, you're at the end of the day a target for the military. They see you as an enemy. And they'll try to not only hurt you, but hurt those close to you. As an old tactic they've used. Not against the Baloch only, but against everyone who's spoken out against the military, their policies. And there have been many instances where well-known Pakistani political figures and also people from the media have been harassed, threatened, intimidated, and sometimes assassinated. Or sometimes they've survived those assassination attempts. Very recently, one was Hamid Mir, very well-known and respected journalist in Pakistan, and he had very a clear understanding of the Baloch situation, unlike many people in Pakistan's media. And he also was very honest about it, and he spoke about it, and he criticized the military establishment for their policies. He was threatened on several occasions. Ultimately, he was shot 6 times when he arrived in Karachi. He survived, but he hasn't been as vocal since. So
You've got death threats because of your views.
Well, it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, it's something that my family are quite used to by now. I'm sure a lot of people. It's not something that's normal. It's not something that happens with everyone. It's not something that can be easily lived with. But it's a part of it. Either you stay quiet and you perish, or you speak up and you might get somewhere. So it doesn't really bother me. The threats that I have received are from religious extremist groups in Balochistan that are created by Pakistan's military establishment, the ISI and the MI. And I mean, when the masters couldn't make me flinch, I don't think these guys could. And also, very recently, Balochistan's chief minister has also been issuing threats. He's been welcoming me back, along with my family's members, and he's saying that I'll welcome him. Me and my family will welcome him when he comes back. So there's, in a very sinister way. So people who understand what that means when he says it, obviously he himself can't do anything. It's the state machinery behind him that he wants to use. But then again, what I see this as is like if I were to go back, and if something were to happen, Pakistan already has an extremist group, a religious group that has issued these threats. And if the Pakistani military or their cronies decide to do something, they already know whom to blame for it. I mean, it's one of their guys, obviously, but they'll say, these guys had said it, and blame them for it. And who knows who they are? They don't have faces, they don't have names.
Why fight for Balochistan if you can never go back?
Well, I want to go back. Everyone wants to be there. And the only way to go back is once you have, when you know you can live there with dignity and pride, with your rights, and you have no fear of anyone like breaking into your house and dragging you out and disrespecting you and your family, and that's something you can't live with. I mean, that's the reason we decided to move abroad to begin with. It was never safe. I mean, I could take it, but I care about those who are close to me. It's not a good place to be in, especially if you feel that there's a state, right, going that doesn't care about anything. It doesn't care about any implication. Judiciary is not going to do anything about it. Like, law enforcement is obviously, they're the guys behind everything that's going wrong in Balochistan. So this is what we want to change. We wish for a Balochistan where the people can live in harmony and peace without having to fear for their lives. People of all religions, all races can live as they used to. This Balochistan is that one part of Pakistan where Hindus, Christians and other religious minorities have found refuge and sanctuary. It's a place where they've lived for hundreds of years without anyone harassing them. But ever since the Baloch leadership and the Baloch themselves have found themselves in such a dire situation over the last 10-15 years, where a military operation was launched against them by Musharraf's government, a lot of people from those communities have had to flee. Some have fled to India. The Hindu community has had to flee, because in other parts of Pakistan there's a lot of intolerance against them.
Of course, India has recently voiced support for Balochistan. What did that mean to the community?
Well, it means a lot to the Baloch people, because they have not really seen much light during this dark phase in their history. It's been a very, very difficult time for the Baloch people. I mean, they've showed a lot of intestinal fortitude during these 70 years of massacre by the Pakistani army, and unfortunately no one's spoken up for the Baloch the way they should have. But now that India has taken that stance, it's something that we welcome. It's something that I think should continue. It's unfortunate that it didn't happen sooner than it did, but nonetheless it's something that we appreciate. I think it's something that other countries should follow, because it's not only about the Baloch, it's something that's going to affect everyone in the region. If the Baloch were not in such a position today, if the Baloch people had more control over their lives and obviously over their territory, I feel that the situation in the region would be very different. You wouldn't have extremism spreading at the level that it is. You wouldn't see the sort of violence that takes place in that part of the world, thanks to several countries playing a part in it. You've got Iran, you've got Saudi Arabia, you've got Pakistan themselves, which are mercenaries, willing to work for anybody. So you wouldn't see all these things happening in this region, because the Baloch would not allow it to happen. The Baloch historically have remained secular. By nature they are. And they're progressive. So they wouldn't allow that to happen. Once again, I hope that India's steps bring about fruitful results. I hope that it brings change in the region. I believe that a lot more has to be done. Still too little that has been done.
So it has been nearly 3 years since Mr. Ajal Doval, who's now a security advisor for India, had said if there's another terror attack that is done by a Pakistani-based group, that Pakistan is set to lose Balochistan. Are the Baloch people waiting for India to act?
Well, the Baloch have been waiting for India to act for a long, long time. But unfortunately, nothing that Pakistan has done has really provoked India so far. And Pakistan doesn't really care. It goes to all extremes in trying to prove a point, maybe, to India that and the rest of the world, that it can do whatever it wants. And India can sit and complain about it. It does and should, but really needs to act in a way that Pakistan really doesn't expect.
Well, you said that you're grateful that India has made a statement now, but it has taken a long time. Your uncle, before he was murdered, even other family members, did they have an opinion on what role India should play? Did they ever voice it to you?
Well, that was in the 1970s when my paternal uncle passed away. At that time, no, there was nothing, no mention of India actually. This is something Pakistan sort of promoted. more than India or any of the Baloch. The Baloch never particularly chose India as a sole protector, or they didn't see them as the only responsible country that should act. It was Pakistan that kept bringing India up. So I feel that, other than that, a lot of my family members, a lot of the political leadership of Balochistan has repeatedly appealed to India to act. And unfortunately, I don't know why. Maybe it was a policy. They probably felt that if they did anything, Pakistan would act strongly against us. It couldn't be any worse. So why not?
And now you attended the London conferences, and it was, symbolically held at the House of Lords for part of it. But do you think that the UK, the US, the European Union are going to take action? Are they hearing what you're saying?
There's so much that Pakistan has done. I've said it before. They've violated every international law possible when it comes to human rights, obviously, but then again, they've done so many things that should have resulted in some sort of action by the British government or the United States or the Western powers. But surprisingly, not much has happened, even though Pakistan openly does things which clearly points out which side they're on. So, yeah, I really feel that the case of Balochistan is something that's serious, that should be taken up. I mean, Pakistan is responsible for crimes against humanity. It has done every single thing possible to suppress the Baloch. It has used aid and support provided by the West to tackle the Taliban against the Baloch. So financial aid and weaponry provided to the Pakistani government to go after the Taliban and other extremist elements have not been used against them. Rather, they've been used against the Baloch, who are secular and progressive and are only asking for their rights. Basically tells you that they're not really afraid of the Taliban, or they're not really threatened by them. It's their baby. So then again, Pakistan's done so much. Osama bin Laden was found in, not too far from Islamabad either, but Abbottabad, in a military town. I mean, after that, I thought things would turn around immediately, but nothing happened. A lot of people did actually think things would change, but nothing happened. It's so clear that Pakistan's got a role to play in extremism, international terrorism, and it's obviously been supporting the Taliban, clearly. But when the West hasn't done anything about that, I really don't expect them to do much about Balochistan at this point. I wish they do. But
then why keep fighting for it if you think no one's going to take notice?
We don't really care if someone does anything about it or no. It's our responsibility to speak for our people. I mean, if we're not going to talk for our people, we're not going to speak up for them, we're not going to... I mean, what's the other option?
Now, China has invested $46 billion into this China-Pakistan economic corridor that's going to go through Balochistan and at the port of Gwadar. Now, in a way, that's providing economic benefit, won't it, in Balochistan? Won't it benefit the people?
Well, there's no precedent set that shows that any sort of development project has brought prosperity to the Baloch people. So far, every single project that has been carried out, developmental project as they call it, but seems to be on the contrary, it's not really brought about any positive results for the locals. They continue to suffer more than they did before the project was launched. I mean...
How so?
So people from Gwadar, let's say, after this project was announced, people are now being, their lands were confiscated, not only by, big businessmen coming from other towns exploiting them and them not having knowledge about these things, obviously, but military generals and all these senior military officers were confiscating lands when people were refusing to sell them. And on top of that, you had people are not being allowed to go into Gwadar. You now need a pass to go there. Gwadar was a city of 70,000 people, and a lot of the population survived on there were a lot of fishermen from Gwadar. So those fishermen have had to leave Gwadar and go elsewhere. So it's sort of destroyed Gwadar's society in a way. The people have had to leave. And then following that, when they announced these projects, they brought in the military. And the military is harassing people, targeting people, picking them up. People are being abducted and they go missing, then their bodies are found a couple of days later or maybe months later. So now people live in fear. Wherever there's a development project, wherever the army starts moving in, wherever their boots touch the ground, there's trouble.
So what makes then the Baloch people inherently different to other Pakistanis?
I believe the world is not made up of countries, it's made up of nations. And the Baloch are a nation. Just because they're a part of Pakistan doesn't mean they're Pakistanis. Pakistan came into existence 70 years ago. The Baloch have been there for hundreds of years before Pakistan was even there. Balochistan was an independent state for years, for hundreds of years, well before the British came, well before Pakistan was ever there. There was Persia, there was Afghanistan, there was India, and there was Balochistan. There was no Pakistan. A lot of Pakistanis don't even know that. When I speak to some of them, they're like, really? We didn't even know that. Because they don't teach them in their history books. They don't want people to know. They don't even want us, the Baloch, to learn our history. They'll teach us about Jinnah. Post-1940s, hundreds of years of the Baloch history is lost. We're completely different people. Our values are completely different, which is why we can't simply coexist. It's not because we're good or they're bad or they're good or we're bad. It's because we can't coexist. We don't understand each other. They've got their own values. We've got our own values. Things that we find inappropriate and wrong, and they probably find it's all right. And same way. We have a very different history from Punjab and from other provinces, even the Pashtuns. And we've got a completely different language. Even the food we eat is different. Everything is different. They fail to understand us, we fail to understand them. So maybe we need someone else to come sort this thing out.
Well, the Baloch have a closeness to India. Where does that come from?
We have a closeness to India?
Yeah.
See, obviously, Balochistan has, for a part of its existence, been a part of India. Balochistan was a part of British India. So you could say there's some relation there.
Or is that India connection pushed by Pakistan?
It's obviously pushed by Pakistan. See, up until 2005, you would see the Baloch leadership on giving interviews to the media, and they were quite vocal about it, to the extent where the Pakistan civil society and media and politicians were supporting the Baloch leadership in their demands, and were actually criticizing Musharraf's government for its policies. So then came India out of nowhere, and this is something that Pakistanis invented. It came out of nowhere. The reason why they did this is because in Pakistan, if you ask someone, you could try this, you ask someone which one's worse, India or Satan, they'll say India. And when you associate anyone's struggle with India, people are going to flip. They're not going to think how justified your cause is. They're not going to look at how right you are or how much you've been suppressed and how much you've been looted and how much you've suffered over the years. They won't really look at that. They'll forget about everything and they'll say, okay, India's got something to do with this. This is not something that the people want. This is something that India wants. That's where it all goes. That's where people lose it.
Another regional player, Iran, is unlikely to back an independent Balochistan. There's lots of Baloch who live in Iran, but they may feel that it might cause unrest in Tehran. What do the Baloch think of Iran?
The Baloch people are a nation, and unfortunately a part of it is occupied by Iran, a part of Balochistan, and a part of it occupied by Pakistan. But we don't recognize that line that draws, that is carved in between. We don't recognize it. The Baloch are a nation, they've been there. Just because some bloke decided that there should be a border between the two doesn't mean we aren't one. But the situation is different there. The Iranian government not only discriminates against the Baloch on the basis of their ethnicity, but also on the basis of their religion. On the Pakistani side, you have just the basis of their ethnicity. Yes, we're still called infidels and we're still labeled as so many things on the Pakistani side, but in Iran, the entire population, not only the government, sees the Baloch and discriminates against the Baloch because not only on the basis of their ethnicity, but also on the basis of their religion. But when it comes to Balochistan and the struggle of the people, the political struggle of the people, Pakistan and Iran have always joined hands wherever they can. It's one thing they get along in really well. So in the 1970s, when after my grandfather's government was dismissed, it's something that the Iranian government wanted as well. The Iranian government supported Bhutto's idea to dismiss the government. They were close. Pahlavi and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, they were close, they had good relations. And as soon as the government was formed in Balochistan, the Iranian government feared that this nationalist government that's come into power might sort of flare things up on our side. So they supported Pakistan government's attempt to ban the party, to imprison the leadership, and especially in the military operation, which went on for 5 years. And in that military operation, the Iranian government provided Pakistan with helicopter gunships to kill and massacre the Baloch people. So the Iranian government has in many ways been more ruthless than Pakistan towards the Baloch. I mean, they'll execute them for speaking the language, they'll execute them for reading the literature or selling the literature, they'll execute them for wearing the clothes, traditional Baloch clothes. They'll do things, arrest people for no reason and execute them, hang them on a crane, and then ask the loved ones of that person to pay for the expenses of that crane to get the body. And that's, I mean, these are countries, these are theocratic states, Pakistan, Iran, which shouldn't even be on the map. I mean, these are countries that are cancer for the region, for the world. I think whoever thinks of supporting them or working something out with them is completely out of their mind.
With all that said, where does your hope lie?
Well, our hope lies in our people, and nothing but our people. We can't really rely on anyone else to come and save us. Obviously, that's something that the world should realize. It's something we would welcome for the US, UK, for other international powers. It is a responsibility to take a stand for the Baloch, for humanity. But finally, I hope that the international community realizes what the Pakistani military is. It's not their friend. If they get the chance, they will hurt them.
Do you believe that you will see an independent Balochistan in your lifetime?
Well, it's something that every Baloch wants. It's not necessarily something that might happen in my lifetime, but it's something that has to happen. As long as the Baloch are in power, as long as the Baloch, are in a position where they can decide their fate, things will start to change. It's not just good for us, it's good for, as I said, for everyone. I think the Baloch are probably going to be the best natural allies of the West, if the West wants it.
Noordin Mengal.
Thank you, Andy.